16 years of marriage, no suspicions. One August night, in the bedroom her grandparents had died in, a notification went off on her sleeping husband's phone. Then she heard her dead grandmother say, "Open it." Welcome to Liminal Chapters. Today's story is inspired by a post from r/Thetruthishere. Names and identifying details have been changed. 16 years of marriage. One grandmother waited longer. This is going to be hard to get out, but I needed to get the whole story down somewhere. I never imagined I'd be telling this story to anyone. My husband's infidelity and what looks like our coming divorce hasn't been made public to the people who know us. The few friends and family I've told are still in shock. My therapist told me she lies awake at night thinking about me. Everyone who knew us thought we were the dream couple. Even after 16 years, we were still close, still affectionate, still in love. There wasn't much that got in the way of intimacy. Not the kids, not his 50-hour weeks, not pregnancy, not the days after each baby. We were one of those couples, which is what makes this so impossible to make sense of. My grandmother was my best friend. She lived next door to me my whole life, and we spent most of it together. My older kids were lucky enough to have the bond with her that I'd had with her growing up. She was the kindest, coolest woman I've ever known. A good time, always positive. Never spoke badly about anyone, ever, and she loved her husband. The love my grandparents had for each other was the love a child watches and decides this is what marriage is supposed to be. My mother saw it growing up, and her marriage with my father is the same. I thought mine was too. I was a husband-worshipping wife, the same way my mother and my grandmother had been. The pain of his betrayal has changed me. I don't see the world the same way anymore. It's like the light went out when my grandmother died, and the world became dark. Now it's hot and dark, like I've been dropped into something I don't deserve. When my grandmother passed away, my husband and I bought her house, 5 acres on a quiet stretch of country road, right next door to my parents. Our kids walk over to my parents' house the same way my siblings and I used to walk over to my grandmother's. It felt like fate. We moved in early summer of last year. I take care of the house. It's a house of love. Pure, unwavering, till death do us part, love. My husband and I sleep in the same bedroom my grandparents slept and died in. A few weeks after we moved in, we were scheduling my husband's vasectomy for that fall. It was the earliest the doctor could get him in. What we didn't know was that I was already pregnant with our third. My grandmother had 3 kids. My mother had 3 kids. When I had my son and my daughter, I was sure I was done. 2 was enough. I'd had a procedure that year that should have made a third pregnancy impossible. My grandmother used to tell me, "Why did you do that? You're going to want 1 more. You need 3, like me and your mum." I was furious about it. I didn't want a third. I went to a clinic and paid the non-refundable fee for the procedure. But when they did the ultrasound, they told me I was past the new state cutoff. The law had changed 3 days after I'd moved into my grandmother's house, and I was 3 days over the new limit. I knew in the moment what had happened. My grandmother had gotten her way. I was depressed through the whole pregnancy. I'd been ready to go back to work, to be more than wife and mother. But that baby was determined to come into the world, and I'm so grateful he did. He has his great-grandmother's stamp all over him. Her favourite number was 3. 3 was everywhere in her house. And 3 months after we moved in, She made sure I would not miss the rest of it. It was early August. My husband and I had just gotten home and gone to bed. I was in deep sleep. He was snoring next to me. I heard a notification go off on his phone. My ears perked up for a second because it wasn't his usual text tone. But I'm not the suspicious kind. We had each other's passcodes. We had nothing to hide. Or so I thought. I closed my eyes and started to drift off again. A second notification went off. I didn't really hear it that time. What I felt was something like a jolt of electricity, like a cattle prod. I jumped awake, my heart pounding, the hair on my arms standing up like razor blades. And as I sat up, I heard my grandmother's voice. "Open his phone." I leaned over my sleeping husband and opened it. Sitting right there in the open was an app I didn't recognize. A free phone number app with 50 or 60 different message threads from escorts. One of them was responding to his inquiry. He knew the lingo, the shorthand. He knew exactly what he was doing. I scrolled through addresses he'd messaged. I cross-referenced them with his maps history. He'd driven to every single one. There were a lot of massage parlors, several within walking distance of his job. I stayed up the rest of the night going through his phone. He had a secret credit card I didn't know about, paying $50 a month for a parlor review subscription. He had accounts on every escort app I'd ever heard of, and several I hadn't. He'd built a profile that read, "Happily married, looking for fun, no love." The profile had been live for years. I waited for him to wake up at 3 for work. The moment his eyes opened, I asked him, "Why are you cheating on me?" His response was a sentence I won't repeat. The venom in it was the worst part. Hearing my husband of 16 years speak to me that way caused me to black out. I went into a kind of shock. I didn't remember the next 3 days clearly. I know I was still sleeping in the same bed as him. I know I believed him when he told me he had never actually gone through with anything. I wanted to believe him. By the end of the third day, late at night, we were getting ready for bed. He called me into the bathroom to look at a painful rash that had appeared that day. He was standing there. The moment I saw it, I screamed. It was a rash that doesn't lie. Whatever he had been telling me for the last 3 days had just been undone by his own body. It took him hours to admit that he had been with other women and that I needed to get tested. I stopped sharing a bed with him that night. I got tested the following day and 3 more times after that. Every test came back negative. I think my grandmother saved me from sleeping with him during whatever outbreak that was. From bringing it home to a newborn. From bringing it home to our other kids. I don't think he ever planned to tell me. He was protecting himself, not us. The timing was hers, not his. I went into a very dark place for the next 3 weeks. I lived in the house with him, but I wasn't really there. I started planning ways to disappear. I'm not exaggerating. The only reason I'm still here is the baby. He needed me. He kept me grounded. If it weren't for him, I'm not sure where I'd be. A couple of weeks later, I woke up with this overwhelming feeling that I needed to confront my husband with the full picture. Something was telling me this had been going on for a long time. He was too experienced to be new at it. I sat him down. I said, "Tell me about the last 5 years." I had no actual evidence about 5 years. I didn't even suspect 5 years, but I played it like I knew. And he told me he had started cheating in the summer of 5 years ago. It hit me then. 4 years ago, I had been diagnosed with high-risk HPV. I had been told I'd probably picked it up before I met him, almost 2 decades earlier, and that it had stayed dormant. I'd been doing painful follow-ups every few months ever since, getting checked for cervical cancer. He had watched me go through every one of those appointments and never said a word. He had watched his own mother go through the same thing in her 60s from his father's affairs decades earlier, and still hadn't found the integrity to stop himself. It is wild to me that I had no suspicion that he was able to live this double life for 5 years, possibly longer, without me ever asking a single question. And then we move into my grandmother's house, and within weeks of it, my grandmother says, "No, not in my house," and makes all of it come to light. I thank her every single day. I feel her in this house. I feel her guidance. I plan to stay here. This was always supposed to be a house of love. It's going to go back to being one, even after he is long gone. The verdict. This one lands as protected. 16 years of marriage with no suspicions, and within weeks of moving into the house her grandmother died in, the whole picture surfaced in a single night. The timing is the part that won't be argued away. Maybe that is grief sharpening her senses. Maybe it is something else. The house did not want a visitor. It wanted a witness. I want your take on this one. Do you think a grandmother can still keep watch over her house? Thanks for listening. Follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one.